Assalamu alaikum to all our viewers around the world. Thank you so much for tuning into my program once again this week. So on today's show, we're going to be discussing the concept of the hijab. As you know, the hijab is something that's got a lot of controversy around the world, and there's debate about how it should be worn and what the hijab is actually. So I'm going to be going through two of the verses from the Holy Quran, which speaks about how the hijab should be worn and who it should be worn around. So the hijab basically means barrier or screen. So it does not just mean the women's clothes. It means barrier or screen. And in the Holy Quran, there's many verses which talks about the hijab as well. So now we will go to the first verse, which says, in chapter 24, Surah Nur, in verse 30, Allah commands, "Tell the believing men to reduce some of their vision and guard their private parts. That is purer for them. Indeed, Allah is acquainted with what they do." So this verse 30 was actually aimed at the men to lower their eyes and not to look at forbidden things. And if they're to look at something unintentionally, then they do not do the second look. So now we will go to the verse which is for the women. In chapter 24, verse 31, Surah Nur, Allah commands the Prophet to address the women. "And tell the believing women to reduce some of their vision and guard their private parts and not expose their adornment except that which necessarily appears thereof, and to wrap a portion of their head covers over their chests and not expose their adornment except to their husbands, their fathers, their husbands' fathers, their sons, their husbands' sons, their brothers' sons, their sisters' sons, their women, that which their right hands possesses, or those male attendants having no physical desire, or children who are not yet aware of the private aspects of women. And let them not stamp their feet to make known what they conceal of their adornment. And turn to Allah in repentance, all of you, O believers, that you might succeed." This is a command from Allah to the believing women, and it also distinguishes them from the disbelieving women. So the first verse begins off with telling the women to lower their gaze. And tell the believing women to lower their gaze means from that which Allah has forbidden them to look at apart from their husbands, and to protect their private parts from immoral actions. And protect their private parts means protecting them from being seen by anybody. And not to show off their adornment except that which is apparent, means they should not show anything of their adornment to non-mahram men except for whatever is impossible to hide. And to draw their veils all over their chests means that they should wear the outer garment in such a way as to cover their chests and ribs, so that they will be different from the women of the Jahiliyyah, who did not do that, but would pass in front of men with their chests completely uncovered and with their necks, forelocks, hair and earrings uncovered. So Allah commanded the believing women to cover themselves. And to draw their veils all over their chests, this means to pull it around tightly and securely. And not to reveal their adornment except to their husbands, or their fathers, or their husbands' fathers, or their sons, or their husbands' sons, or their brothers' sons, or their sisters' sons. All of these are a woman's close relative whom she can never marry, so therefore it is permissible for her to show her adornment to them, but without making a big display of herself. And not to reveal their adornment except to their husbands or their fathers or their husbands' fathers. So here the paternal uncle and the maternal uncle are not mentioned, because they may describe the women to their sons. So a woman should not remove her veil and hijab in front of her paternal or maternal uncle. Or their women, this means that she may also wear her adornments in front of other Muslim women. No woman should describe another woman to her husband, so that it is as if he is looking at her. Or their right hand possessions. This means from among the women of the idolaters. It is permissible for a Muslim woman to reveal her adornment before such a woman, even if she's a non-Muslim, because she is her slave girl. or those male attendants having no physical desire, or children who are not yet aware of the private aspects of women. This means that because they are so young, they do not understand anything about the woman or their aura or their soft speech or their enticing ways of walking and moving. If a child is small and does not understand that, there is nothing wrong with him entering upon a woman. But if he's an adolescent or approaching adolescence, so that he knows and understands these things, then he cannot enter upon a woman without a hijab. And let them not stamp their feet. During the Jahiliyyah, when women walked in the streets wearing anklets and no one could hear them, they would stamp their feet so that men could hear their anklets ringing. Allah forbade the believing women to do this. By the same token, if there is any other kind of adornments that is hidden, women are forbidden to make any movement that they would reveal what is hidden. So in Surah Nur, verse 30 and 31, we saw the modest interaction that should be between males and females. Now we'll go to the next chapter, which is Surah Al-Ahzab, verse 59. We'll see what this verse has to say about the women's dress code. O Prophet, tell your wives and your daughters and the women of the believers to bring down over themselves part of their outer garments. That is more suitable, that they will be known and not be abused. And ever is Allah forgiving and merciful. This means that the Islamic code for the women's dress is not just the scarf that should be covering the head and the chest, but the dress has to be long and loose. Here Allah tells His Messenger to command the believing women, especially His wives and daughters, because of their position of honor, to draw their outer garments over their bodies, so that they will be distinct in their appearance from the women of the Jahiliyyah and from the slave women, meaning they will be recognized as Muslim and will not be harmed. So looking at the verses we've covered today, you can get an idea of how the Muslim woman should be covered, not just covered, but also her personality, her speech, and her actions. So now you might be wondering why we have to wear the hijab. Here are some reasons. First of all, and one of the most important reasons why we have to wear the hijab is because Allah has ordered us to wear it, therefore we must. Other reasons can include the fact that men, whether they confess it or not, are slaves of lusts and desire. Hijab protects women from such men. It symbolizes that she has been sanctified to one man only and is off limit to all others. Hijab contributes to the stability and preservation of a marriage and a family by eliminating the chances of extramarital affairs. Finally, it compels men to focus on the real personality of the woman and de-emphasizes her physical beauty. It puts the women in control of strangers' reactions to her. Now we will look at some of the conditions of the hijab. 1. It must cover the whole body. 2. Material should not be see-through. 3. It should be loose-fitting. 4. No decorations or too glamorous to attract men. 5. Must not be perfumed. 6. Must not be worn for showing off. 7. Must not resemble the dress of men. 8. Must not resemble the dress of the disbelievers. And finally, 9. Must not have any symbols of other religions. So the complete hijab would include the moral conduct, the attitude, the personality, and the intentions of a person, which should be accompanied by the hijab of the eyes, the heart, and the mind. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me on today's program about the hijab. I hope you got something out of it, and I'm sure that you can do your own research as well. And I wish you all the best of luck, and Allah bless you all in this life and next. Khudafiz.